Um, just as I said. So I will just change my screen for to yeah. So I am Beyazit. I'll be chairing this session, and we are joined by experts on gendered mobilities today, whom I'll introduce in a minute. But they're also contributors to an edited collection me and Karen Lucas are working on at the moment, that is called The Gendered Mobilities in the Global South, which will be published by Edward Elgar in 2025. And I want to talk briefly about why we're doing this book, what we aim with it. As we all know, actually, gender inclusive planning in the Global South is still, we can say, its infancy. Although there are gender distinctions that are concerning travel behavior, such as safety, security, and violence that are embedded in power relations and many policies actually that are dealing with them. Still, it's not only about, we can say these issues are not only about gender issues and social norms, but also a result of gender blind policies. So that's what we want to actually, we are aiming with this book to work on these gender policies and work with different circles to come up with maybe new policies in that sense. And especially during the COVID-19, local and national authorities were a little bit slow to take action, and this sort of generated greater burdens on women. For instance, during my fieldwork in Istanbul last year, I encountered female domestic workers who organized shuttles to take them to their workplaces due to diminished services during the pandemic. So theoretically, this book links three critical research strands and to urban and transport geography through the gendered mobilities lens. And these are, first of all, transport planning and mobility justice, where we investigate not only distributional aspects of transport, but also other forms of justice. Secondly, we also look at neoliberal policies and urban development, especially the ways in which low-income women are categorically pushed towards peripheries or excluded from transport opportunities in rural areas. And third, we are also looking at intersectional approaches to gendered mobilities by incorporating class and participation to labor. So together with 26 renowned researchers and civic actors and contributing to 17 chapters across 19 countries, this edited collection will act as a platform. We want it to act as a platform for academics and policymakers to jointly mature the policy recommendations in the Global South. The first theme of the book is spatial change and transport provision. Here we'll have research reporting daily mobility practices in different urban and rural settings. And Beatriz, Mella, Lira today will present the Chilean example to us. The second theme looks at the ways in which transport systems may become enabler or disabler of women's participation in daily life and work. And Sharmin and Nasrin will present their initial findings of the experiences of women garment workers in Bangladesh. The final theme is called Empowering Women in Transport. Here we'll see how women themselves, but also in collaboration with civil society initiatives, academics, and policymakers, can build a more just transport system through deliberation, participation, and representation. Tanu, Priya, Uteng will demonstrate a newly developed tool which will strengthen communication and capacity of local stakeholders to tackle sexual harassment of women and girls. So without further ado, I'd like to give the floor to our speakers. First, we'll Beatriz Mella Lira, Director of the Center for Urban Research and Decentralization, Habitat and Territorial Development, Universidad Bello, will begin. And Sharmin Nasrin will follow. Sharmin is an assistant professor of Department of Civil Engineering at the University of Asia Pacific. And we will conclude with Tanu Priya Uteng, who is a chief research officer at the Department for Mobility, Institute of Transport Economics, Norwegian Center for Transport Research. Thank you, and I'll give the floor to Beatriz now. And I'll share your screen, Beatriz, just now.
Okay, great, thank you. Well, thanks for the introduction, and thanks again for the invitation to present some of the findings that we've been working on during the last year in the center called Ciudad. And this is for the decentralization, habitat, and urban development. And actually, gender is one of the key aspects that we're looking at in different dimensions. One of the particularities of this center is that it's multidimensional and also very much into the interdiscipline. So we're trying to look different issues, problems related to the city development, and one of them is gender. So today, the idea is to show the big political picture and how that has been built the gender agenda in the last couple of years. Next, please. So Chile has sustained in the past or in the last years, sustained a progressive increase in population density and territorial occupation. And this has impacted the shapes of the cities, but also the sufficiency of mobility infrastructure and the daily mobility dynamics of people. Next. On the other hand, the strong and deep-rooted socioeconomic inequalities, which are going beyond and together as well with the current gender agenda, have been strongly demanded in recent years. And this has created a pendular fluctuation that has brought relevant political consequences for the different parties and also for the different powers, such as the executive and legislative power in the country. And these powers in charge of defining public policy, creating a context quite difficult to read. Next. However, and despite political struggles, recent significant changes in the role of women in society, in the economy, the market, the family, the way we define the labor and the social structures have altogether pushed and moved forward a bigger awareness about the women's and the gender agenda. And there's some sort of consensus that recent feminist movements and the scientific gender reflections have improved or highlighted as well the gender conscious policy responses. Next, please. Now, in the field of mobility, women's daily mobilities have tended to become more complex, as the literature also points out. Everyday elements of infrastructure, security, safety, and accessibility have become increasingly evident and also relevant for state and not only governmental policies. Next, please. I also think it's important to emphasize, especially since we're raising cases in different parts of the global south, that the current state policies on transportation have considered the gender dimension through plans and programs. All of this in the course of recent years with different types of governments with different parties. For example, in 2018 and within the framework of the previous right-wing government, the gender equity in transportation policy was implemented, which is still running up to this date and is focused on improving the transport experience for female users. On the other hand, and as part of the current left-wing government agenda, The National Mobility Strategy has been implemented since 2021 with action guidelines more focused on public policy aimed at increased perception of safety in the public transport system and increase presence of women, minorities, and elderly people on public transport, in reducing vandalism, theft, and sexual violence in public spaces, improving the image of public transport systems, and greater use of public transport. Next, please. And with all the political context and all the current agenda, I think it's relevant to mention all of this because I would like to show the results of these two studies that we've carried out at the Ciudad Center over a period of 1 year. And the first one, we did this in collaboration with the Territorial Observatory of the Institute of Public Policy of the Universidad Bello. In this study, we worked through plenary sessions with stakeholders who are experts in public and private transport, active mobility as well, and also new technologies. And we were considering local and metropolitan context, but it was from the perspective of stakeholders. And the second case is developed with the collaboration with the Ministry of Transport. And this is aimed to understand the extent to which transformations in bus stop infrastructure were seen and considered by users, especially for female users. And we try to understand which of these transformations were more relevant for female and for male users. Next page. So the first case, I called it Integrating the Gender Perspective in Daily Mobility, Reflections from the Stakeholders. And the aim of the study was to diagnose and understand what were the gender inequalities that the stakeholders understood. We wanted to reflect on what they see as gender inequity when referring to daily mobility issues, and which is different from understanding users' perceptions, of course. And with that, we were able to generate some public policy proposals and responses. So we organized 4 roundtables with participants from academia and public sector to address the question of how gender equity is manifested in daily mobility. And it was a very broad and open question to start with the conversation. And we used thematic analysis to analyze the responses of the questions of the 4 groups. And finally, we got 6 topics identified with a series of codes for each topic. I'm not going very deep into each one of them. And they were grouped into 3 large categories: security or personal security, actually, infrastructure, and communication. Next, please. So the topics that defined the first category, personal security, were perception of security in relation to the built environment, personal security in the use of the sidewalk, and personal security when using the car. That was also kind of interesting because it was the different modes for urban mobility, and it was like trying to get all the perception of these policymakers on that as well. The second one, the themes that defined the second category on infrastructure, were the use of infrastructure in daily mobility, the road sharing for active modes as well. And in the third category was more or less around the concepts of awareness and communication. Next, please. And although it seems pertinent to address each one of these aspects in detail, and this is probably going to be in the book, we're going to jump directly to the considerations to pursue in public policy that came from the analysis of the participatory workshops. And then we shared back to the participants of the study. So it was some sort of agreement with them that these were good considerations. So the first one is expanding the awareness of the gender agenda, which is not that obvious. Developing awareness campaigns on gender issues is essential in the mainstream of actions and efforts carried out on mobility, at least in the context of Chile. For these, we suggest moving forward in terms of the definition of certain facilitating concepts, and we call them facilitating concepts because gender is understood in many different ways in many different contexts and groups. So building a common language could be essential. Then address the different scales and territorial dimensions. We believe that different perspectives enrich this diagnosis and also generate better results regarding mobility. So incorporating analysis with multi-territorial approach, relieving in a way the local action or the action of the municipalities and the communes, and also reinforcing the action of regional governments, which is kind of the next level of action in the territory, and also integrating the guidelines of the central government. So working in different scales together in a collaboratively way, it's really important. Then integrate diverse and multidimensional methodologies as well. As we understood there was an issue in terms of language, we also recognized that the methodologies that we're using in public policy to address these gender issues were also relevant. Because we understand that population and territorial diversity sometimes makes it difficult to incorporate different perspectives from different various technical, political, social sectors. And so it's important to address this with better inclusion of standards in our daily mobility system as well. And finally, mainstream gender issues from a multi and interdisciplinary way. So I said before, multidimensional, multiscalar, but also in a very interdisciplinary way to make it more complex in terms of the solutions. So I'm going to jump in the next slide to the second case, which is from the user's perspective. So this I called this one bus stop infrastructure plan, assessing bus stop users' perceptions to reduce gender gaps. The aim of this particular study was to diagnose and understand gender inequalities related to the use of bus stop infrastructure. And this was to support the Ministry of Transport decision-making, because they were like building this infrastructure plan based on gender solutions. And this study considered physically transforming strategic bus stops to reduce these gender gaps. Next, please. So we carried out almost 300 surveys, and at one of the bus stops that were intervened as a pilot in the commune of Quinta Normal to understand the perception of users about the changes, and second, to understand how they assess those changes. And as in the previous study, it was fascinating to expand around each of these aspects. However, I'm going to highlight those that resulted more valuable for assessing that public policy, what public policy can redefine in a gender-conscious approach. First, 67% of all gender users did notice the changes. And this was really good, actually. It was very positive and in some way reinforced the ministry's plan. However, women were very much aware that meant of these changes. 73% of women noticed the changes versus 59% of men. And this also validates, in a way, the efforts to generate better guarantees for women to use this infrastructure and how they perceive these improvements. Next, please. Then we ask users to rate various attributes inside and outside the bus stop. Inside, we evaluated, or we asked them to assess cleanliness, lighting, security, quantity and quality of seats, the ceilings that were also transformed, and also the informative signage. The higher evaluations around the changes pointed to the maintenance of bus stops surrounding areas in terms of cleanliness. However, despite having a relatively good evaluation of changes in lighting, for example, the bus stop surrounding areas were, the personal security resulted as one of the variables worst evaluated by users. Anyways, next, please. And probably this is more like a personal reflection on this, but I think the persistence in the narratives of the lack of security in the use of public spaces and the use of public transport account for a contextual phenomenon that is far from the actions that the state can take only from transforming the infrastructure. All the changes, such as the quality of the seats and the ceiling, and the ceiling, which is very important, for example, because it reduces the climate exposure, are easily recognizable and modifiable. But these easy to change type of elements might change the perception of the system. However, the perception of security is established in a much deeper and rooted relationship with the local environment and also with the sociocultural context. And this is less around the conditions of mobility infrastructure. And those are the limitations of the infrastructure team working at the Ministry of Transport, unfortunately. And the next one. And with this one, I finish. So the exercise of helping to assess infrastructure changes was very pertinent because it increased the inputs for making good decisions and also invited to rethink the solutions that were being implemented because we were assessing a pilot. Then there were several next stages and next implementations and also different points within the city. But also, I think it's necessary. It is a necessary and brave exercise because it exposes the Ministry of Transport to criticism in a way, and even to failure, because we could have found something that they really didn't like at all. And the spirit of the study was to understand which of the practical transformations were critical to identify the most pertinent decisions, and also to analyze with them possible solutions in those dimensions that were not well assessed, and also to measure successful implementation actions. And I believe that both cases, the first one and the second one, the stakeholders and the users cases, are a example of a necessary collaboration between academia and the public sector in the implementation of these gender-aware and gender-responsive actions. The first case from the understanding of what it means to talk about gender in a sociocultural scenario that has a lot of room for improvements on these issues. And the second case, an opening of the public sector of risking to test together with academia the possibilities of transformation, is still considering the limits of the disciplinary and the sectoral decisions. Next one, please. So thank you very much for all the attention.
Thank you, Beatriz. We'll have some time in the end for questions, but I want to move on to the next presenter. Sharmin, if you could share your screen, please. And meanwhile, everyone can join the chat. Maybe there could be some discussion in the chat as well. Thanks a lot, Beatriz. It was really good.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about my study, gender inclusive transport mobility, analysis in context of women worker in garment factories of Bangladesh. Before beginning my presentation, I just would like to mention that this is still a work in progress. So final results are yet to be achieved. So I will be mainly presenting the initial work that I have been conducted. So this is the outline of my study, of my presentation. I will be talking about background of the study, literature review, material method, data collection, FGD result and discussion, variables in structural equation modeling, hypothesis in a structural equation modeling, and at the end, conclusion. So in Bangladesh, ready-made garment sector is one of the main economic contributor. So a significant portion of workforce in the garments factory is women, who are the key driver for economic growth. Previously, a significant percentage, about 80% workforce were women who were working in the garments factory. But unfortunately, in a current study, it has been found the proportion of working women are declining. In 2021, it has been found that the current proportion is about 54%. So transportation is one of the main reasons for declining. For declination of the workforce of women. So transportation is one of the main resource for economic empowerment of women, and also is essential for achieving sustainable development goals, which are eliminating poverty, promoting gender equality, and promoting sustainable cities and communities. So the objectives that I will be mainly exploring with this study are to explore the mobility issues of women in the garment industry and the perception and expectation from the transport system, and to identify the significant variables related to the transport system that influence the overall satisfaction towards transport system and productivity of women garment workers. So actually only 2 literature were found that discuss transport and workability issues of women garment workers in Bangladesh. Hawk et al. In their studies actually mainly investigated the impact of garment factories in the transportation. And also Shumi et al. Their study identified the relationship between workability issue and the quality of women garment worker life. So most of the previous research analyzed overall constraint women workers face, but did not explicitly investigate transport mobility issues. And most of the literature in developing countries identify transport as one of the major constraints they face every day during traveling to work. And however, no literature has found that investigated the correlation between transport mobility issues and productivity of women worker. And my study will overcome that knowledge gap by proposing a holistic gender-inclusive transport system. So the data for this research has been collected through focus group discussion and questionnaire survey. And focus group discussion data has been analyzed with frequency of word analysis, descriptive analysis, and thematic analysis. And questionnaire for the questionnaire survey, the questionnaire was prepared based on the FGD responses and literature review. And the analysis has been conducted with the structural equation modeling. And at the end, both the analysis will provide the factors that is essential for gender inclusive transport policy in the context of garments woman worker. So for this research, 8 FGDs were held. The number of participants in each group was 10. Participants were men and women both. Men were also invited to participate because to understand their perception about gender inclusive transport system. The participants were recruited through personal communication, and they were rewarded a very small amount of money, that is 5 USD, for the participation in the FGD. The FGTs were held in the low-income settlement where most of the garments workers actually live. Specifically, the areas are Korail, Badda, Mirpur, Uttara, and Kamrangichor. And all FGTs were conducted in two parts, open discussion followed by some situational question and answer. The questionnaire survey was conducted at the workplace during weekdays from December 2022 to January 2023. 3 steps were taken to collect the survey data. Garments factors were identified, consent of the employer was obtained, and respondents for the survey were randomly selected. And the survey was conducted in person, face-to-face. That's why the response rate was 99%. And the questionnaire was prepared both in English and Bangla, but as most of the garments workers are from the limited educational background, they were presented only the Bangla questionnaire, and they were explained the questionnaire with the presence of surveyor. The questionnaire included questions related to the respondents' demographic characteristic and also satisfaction level towards the overall current urban transport system. Respondents were requested to give their responses as a rating on a Likert scale of 5 points, varying between 1 and 5. 5 is for strongly agree and 1 is for strongly disagree. The sample size for the study was 500. And with the frequency verb analysis, first of all, the conversation with the participant was converted into text, and the text data was broken down into some individual words, phrases, and tokens, and afterwards they were for each FGDs actually they were calculated, and average time those phrases or words have been used that has been like noted down, and the result have been represented visually with the bar chart. So in this figure, we can see that most of the words actually used was dissatisfaction, afterwards like walking, risk-taking attitude, productivity, good footpath, frustration, unaffordability. These were also used when they talked in the open discussion, also in the situational question and answer. In the situational question and answer, some questions with specific situation have been asked to them. I have mentioned only some of them here. So suppose, for example, they have been asked if they have to wake up early in the morning at 5 a.m. And they need to cook for the family, go to work, and they have to walk for a long distance for a long time. So how it is their feelings? And most of the female actually, and maximum percentage of female, they have stated that they have no other choice. They have to do domestic chores and they have to go to work as well. And male respondent that domestic chores is the responsibility of women. So it is their work. And after finishing the work, they feel tired and exhausted, and they need to go to work. They need to go to market to do their grocery shopping. And female stated that it is their work. They have no other choice. And male respondents stated that female usually do it. So they need transport and they don't have anything. And in case of water logging or rain, how do we go to work or home? Female have stated that those who can afford, they take usually rickshaw, but usually rickshaw puller, they ask for double fare, and mostly they actually walk even in rain or water logging situation. And male respondent, they stated they walk to go to work. And while walking on broken roads, if they fell off and got hurt, female respondent stated that still they have to go to work, because otherwise their money will be deducted from the salary. Even for actually 5 minutes delay, actually their money, the employer actually deduct their salary. And male also responded the same. And about the crossing road, like female respondents stated that because there is most of the time no proper road crossing facility, so they cross the road whenever they get chance. And male also responded same. And about the specific scenario, suppose like about harassment or those similar kind of situation, such as while going back to home at night, you found some weird people on roads. Female respondent stated that they will wait for someone known to come, and male stated that they will change the route. And while going to work or coming back from some work, some people taunt you with bad words, try to assault you or stare at you. What will be your reaction? Female respondent stated, I will not be productive at work if I face it every day, it will be a big trauma. I will quit the job. But male respondents stated that they feel it is normal, and this they stated also that they are male, so they never face this kind of situation. About the car speed near their factory, female stated that nothing can be done, no one think about us. Male stated that they should be signed to reduce speed. About the cycle riding, female respondents stated that their clothes is not appropriate and people will say bad words. Male said that they will, if they get a chance, of course they will ride the bicycle. And about the vendors on their route, female and male both stated they don't want them to be eliminated, as they think that they are eyeing the road. So after like analysis, this open discussion and situational question, this FGT data were divided into several themes, and these themes are actually interrelated, and also with in the structural equation modeling, this theme will be used as a latent variable, and afterwards after testing, it will be tested whether this latent variable have any impact on the productivity or overall satisfaction of the transport system. So theme 1 is dissatisfaction. I'm just mentioning some of them. So suppose for the theme 1, it is dissatisfaction. So mainly the factors they mention about the dissatisfaction that justify this theme is inadequate working facility, unaffordability of available modes, unreliable, inefficient transport system, absence of safety and security, and female inclusivity. That is the theme 2. The factors that justify this theme is they say they don't feel confidence on road. They don't feel they are independent. They feel because they can't go whenever they feel like going. At night, especially, they have to be escorted by their male partner, or they have to travel in a group. And also the social norm and social taboo, that also they feel that hamper their productivity, and also they have those issue, those impact in the transportation. And being productive, suppose like what the factors they stated, the harassment and also the unaffordability. Because of harassment, they like it becomes a trauma, and they sometimes they don't feel very productive at work. And also like vehicle design, they don't feel these are comfortable. And all the working facility, these also affect their productivity. And social norm, that is theme 4, mainly in the social norm that justify domestic core or attitude of men and spend on transport. So domestic core, they have to do it even though they go to work, and they don't, their partner or family member usually don't help them, even though they earn for the family. And also the attitude of men at home and also outside, they feel that they don't get enough like support, and they get like a bad attitude while going to work. And spend on the transport, even though they earn, it is their natural tendency to save money for the family, even instead of spending that on their transport. And frustration, actually, they are frustrated for the overall transport system, but like specifically waterlogging road or the health issues also give them frustration. And risk-taking attitude, that is theme 6, mainly like risk-taking, it justifies that illegal road crossing or sometimes even because they don't have any like especially those who go by bus or human hauler, they have to stand because of absence of waiting area. They have to wait on road, and sometimes they actually there is an incident that they get the vehicle ran over them. And safety and security, that is theme 7. Themes it is also interrelated with risk-taking attitudes because they take illegal crossing, and also like safety under the safety security harassment also comes absence of waiting area or no traffic signal near their factory area. All these factors actually justify this theme. Theme 8 is uncomfortable. That is actually uncomfortable working facility or uncomfortable vehicle, especially rickshaw or Laguna. Laguna or human hauler, they use it very often for their long distance travel, but they feel those are not very comfortable, especially with their dress what they wear. Rickshaw, it is difficult to ride on, and also the human hauler inside is very congested. Theme 9 is feeling of fear, that the factors that justify as they get scared when they, especially at night, they don't feel very safe traveling at night, and also inside bus, sometimes they get they face the abuse from their co-passenger. And theme 10 is accessibility. Accessibility is an issue for them because of that they have to live near to their workplace, because they can't afford or any good transportation, and they have to live in a substandard condition in a slum near the working place. And women-friendly mode and infrastructure, again, it's related to female inclusivity as well, because the mode design is not very friendly, especially bus or rickshaw or human hauler. Those design has never been considered the women's issue. And conservativeness is mainly justifies the factors such as ride share. Even though they don't usually they don't take ride share as motorbike, such as motorbike, but in case also they have to take, even in a condition they get a lower price, they won't avail that mode, because they think that sharing a bike with an unknown person is not acceptable to the society. And theme 13 is happiness. That is mainly about the pollution, or also the travel time taken in a congested situation. So some variables I just mentioned here about the structural equation that will be tested with the structural equation model. First of all, overall satisfaction and being productive, they are the they are the dependent, they will be the dependent latent variable, and the other latent variable that will be coming from those themes will be tested with this overall satisfaction and being productive. If this satisfaction or productivity has any impact by those latent factors. So overall satisfaction, the indicators are mainly women workers do not leave the footpath more than 4 times due to obstruction and broken parts. And women workers can conveniently walk to the public transportation stand and avail one to their destination. Women workers have good road crossing facility while traveling. Women do not face eavesdropping, harassment, snatching, or hijacking. Women workers have transport modes with government subsidies or get paid for transportation from the factory. For the being productive, the indicators are women workers can work on a properly designed and clean footpath. She can reach work on time and be more productive. As a woman have extra domestic responsibilities, saving time from travel can allow them to give more quality time to their families. They become more productive at work. If she doesn't face harassment during travel, she can focus more on work. During emergency situation, workers will be more productive if they get financial assistance for their travel. If vehicle designed for the safety and comfort, specifically for women, physical and mental comfort will help women to be more productive. So in the structural equation model, different hypotheses will be tested to understand which factors affect the productivity of women workers, and different hypotheses will be tested with a structural equation model to understand which factors affect overall satisfaction towards transport system. And some of the variables that will be tested are frustration, conservativeness, incompatibility, social norm, feeling of fear, uncomfortable feeling, etc. So in conclusion, women workers are overall dissatisfied because of inadequate and broken working facilities, absence of safety, security, unreliable and inefficient public transport. but they think as they're poor, they have no choice other than to accept the status quo. It is a social norm that they need to do all domestic chores. Even the excess time on roads make them exhausted. As a result, it affects their productivity at work. As a result, they cannot give quality time to their family. They are vulnerable because of the deficiency of transport system and social attitudes towards them. And it is expected that SEM result will relate significant transport factors with productivity of women garment worker. Eventually, it will help not only for the policymaker, also it will help the garment factory owner. It is anticipating that it will help the employer as well to give some concession or subsidy or financial benefit to the woman garment worker to get them more productive, and transport policy should be implemented in a holistic manner. So that's all from me.
Thank you so much, Sharmin. Thank you very much. This will be a very valuable contribution to our book, actually. So looking forward to reading the final chapter as well.
Thank you.
I'll give the floor to Tanu now, and then we'll be expecting some questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you. So am I audible?
Yes.
And the slide is visible in full screen mode?
Not yet. Yes, now it is.
Okay. So thanks a lot for the invitation. And what I'll be presenting today, it's a tool called She Can Tool. And so far we have heard that personal security and safety is a big concern for women. However, when you start talking about this topic, it's a topic which needs inputs from various dimensions. And there's a lack of structure on how to address this topic, from the policymaker side. So a project was set up, it's called INTAL. It was funded by the British government. And it's a collaboration between different partners. So in the bottom, you can see the various partners who were involved in the project. And the aim was to build capacity of transport professionals. Please make note that it's transport professionals and how to build their capacity to deliver gender equitable, inclusive transport, specifically for tackling sexual harassment of women and girls. And the ultimate product which was aimed at is to establish a web-based decision-making tool. So whenever you want to address this topic, you can basically, your starting point could be this decision-making tool. So I'll take you quickly through this tool structure. And the ideal use of this research product is for policy and decision makers in low-income cities. And our case has been, these are the partners, and our case has been just to benchmark, there's a lot of findings on this topic from around the world, but we wanted to benchmark what's happening in Africa. So we had two primary case studies, which is Lagos and Blantyre, and surveys were carried out both on tablet and also paper-based surveys supported by focus groups. And then they were sort of corroborated or validated in Abuja and Kigali through model behavior workshops and workshop with policymakers and different professionals involved with the transport sector. And all these findings were taken into this decision-making tool as inputs, apart from the other broad research on this topic, which is to be found in the research world. So very quickly, I will take you through the tool itself and what is the thought process which went behind the content in its structure. I have a short video from Professor Marianne van der Schuren. She's from University of Cape Town in South Africa. And I'll share her short video to explain what was the thought process and how was the tool structured. And then I'll take you to the tool itself. Because instead of talking about just the factors and everything which should be discussed when you talk about personal security, it will be interesting to see how the different factors, the different topics were brought together. So just give me a second and I will share the tool with you, or the thought process behind it. Just a second. So can you see the slide of the video called VP4 beta testing?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll play the video now and I hope it's audible. Please let me know in chat if anything is wrong. Is the video audible to you?
No, Tanu, if you could share it again and then say share the sound of the computer, I
Okay.
think. Yeah.
Okay, just a second.
Mhm.
Consortium.
Yeah, works now.
I'll start from the start then. Yeah.
Good day, participants. My name is Marianne van der Schuren, and I'm one of the members of the Empower Consortium. An important role that I've played in this project is structuring the tool, all the information that we have collected into a digitized online tool. And that work I conducted together with my colleague, Dr. Tanja Lane-Visser. This slide indicates what the landing page looks like of the online tool. The link was sent to you already. To help you understand where to go, I will now unpack the structure further. The tool, when you get to the starting page, has three distinct parts to it. It has a part that provides you with background information, data, templates, who we are as a consortium, etc. Then there is a lot of thematic information that is a repository of information structured in various themes. And then we tailor information to different stakeholders or for specific needs. Within the thematic team, there are 6 categories of information. One related to infrastructure, the second campaigns, education and behavioral change, the third one management, the fourth one legal and legal frameworks, surveillance and policing, and finally vehicle design. Overall, the 6 categories include 49 interventions. If we look at infrastructure as an example, we see that it has the following interventions: provision of lighting, emergency buttons, the characteristics of sidewalks and toilets, the creation of safe spaces, and also safe spaces through the use of mixed land uses, identifying open sightlines in public spaces, as well as the connectivity to mobile phones. As mentioned in the tool, under the tailored structure, there are various stakeholders that get tailored information. The 5 stakeholders identified are local authorities, policymakers, enforcement agencies, transport providers, and NGOs. Via the thematic side or the tailored side of the tool, you can get to the 49 interventions. The tailored route and selection of interventions for the 5 different stakeholders is one very important filter that we have included in the tool. There are 8 other filters that the user of the tool can access through the thematic side. And through that, there is a selection of the 49 interventions that the user can review. As participants, you're quite new to all of this information. And let me tell you that overall, there are more than 2,000 pieces of information that are included in the tool. Some of it is provided in the word cloud that you can see on this slide. So how to structure all of that information was one of the biggest challenges, and we found that structuring it into a pyramid with 4 different sides was the best option. So what we are trying to provide to users is different pathways on this pyramid to creating a harassment-free society. The consortium developed a ranking system called the Empower Intervention Classification System. One of the pyramid sides goes into that, and you can see that there are 3 layers. There are interventions that are foundational, some that are alleviating, and others that are empowering. We've said quite a bit already about the different categories. There are 6, and that's the other one of the sides of the pyramid. Then you have the 49 interventions that also have been mentioned before. There is a filtering system. Again, I will come back to that. And then there are the stakeholders at the bottom. So this slide indicates how an opened up pyramid actually looks and what the different parts are to the information. As mentioned, the tool includes 49 different interventions that are displayed or categorized on the 3rd part of the pyramid. The 49 pages for the interventions include 10 impacts, and these are a description, statistics, and interesting facts, type of impact such as the area, time of day, mode, and demographic impacted. There are comments on resources, monetary as well as non-monetary resources. Each intervention has a SWOT analysis, an effectiveness rating, an indication what the implementation timelines are. The scale of the implementation, is this local, citywide, regional, or national? How easy is it to implement this intervention, as well as the references where all this information is coming from. Last but not least, I would like to unpack the filter system, which is another side of the pyramid that has been explained. Firstly, there are predefined filters, and an important one is the primary interventions per stakeholder, and that has been displayed in the presentation as the tailored path. Then there are the Empower Intervention Classification System framework, and I've mentioned that before as well. There is the most effective interventions for women. There are the different areas, and if we talk about areas, we mean, is it in the public transport vehicle, or while we're waiting at the stop or station, or walking to and from stops and station? So which area is impacted the most, and you can get a list of interventions per typical area, public transport related area. We have interventions that can be implemented in the short term, medium term, or long term, and you can select those, as well as interventions that are more or less easy to implement. There are also 2 user-defined filters. The first one is most resource efficient interventions, and the user can then look at capital cost, operational cost, skills, time, or the political will. And the user can also make selections with regards to the effectiveness of interventions for women. This brings me to the end of a presentation on the structure of the tool. I'm going to hand back to my colleagues to now go into further information on the tool itself and share more with you. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, so thanks to Professor Wondershirin. So now you have a basic idea of how the tool is structured. And I wanted to quickly show you the tool page itself. And there you can, I can't take you through the entire tool in this presentation, but I'll just quickly show you how it looks like. And you can spend some time later on looking for it. And after that, you can come back to me with your comments, suggestions. So first, let me show the tool slides, and then I have some concluding slides, which I'll show before wrapping up my presentation. So just a second. So can you see the screen now?
Yep.
This is the tool. If you just Google She Can tool, this web page will pop up. And you can see that here you have two ingress into the tool. So let's just take the take decision. So once you click on take decision, it will ask you what type of stakeholder are you. So you can select one of your positions, like let's say for a local authority, you're working in local authority and you want to tackle with the sexual harassment on public transport. You click here, then as a local authority, it will give you these categories of intervention, legal framework, surveillance, infrastructure, campaigns, vehicle design, management. Now let's just click on vehicle design. So on vehicle design, it gives you these 5 interventions, right? And if you click on each intervention, let's say in vehicle lightning. So if you click here, it will give you a general overview of the intervention. It will give you some information of how it's the region of reference, what's done in the various parts of the world on this topic. And also it will give you certain types of, the impacts. For example, the area impacted. So like this intervention only targets the portion of travel on board of the vehicle when you're on board, right? Time of the day impact, demography, mode. And it takes you through various, these kind of headings. And it will tell you, like, as a local authority, if you're wanting to invest in it, is it a capital cost requirement? Is it an operational cost requirement, so here you can see that it's not a very expensive intervention. It's a low cost intervention. The kind of skills required is also low. The kind of time required to implement is also low. You can also go through the SWOT analysis of each intervention and then have some sort of feedback on the effectiveness of this intervention from the point of view of, of women. And all this kind of background analysis is based on an in-depth research, both desktop research, literature review, but also feedback from the various workshops you have had with policymakers and transport professionals involved in the sector in Africa. But the consortium itself was drawn from various parts of the world, so you were actually having feedback from all around the world. It also gives you some kind of idea about the implementation, the time frame which you are looking at, the time frame to realize the benefits, the scale of implementation, the ease of implementation, and then the list of references which can be found on this particular intervention. So this is just to give you a very quick snapshot of how this tool is set up. But as you can see, you can click on each heading, and then like in management, there are 21 interventions. So for each intervention, you have all that detailed information. However, the tool is functional, it's available online. However, we can't say that this is a completely finished tool. There's always scope to improve it, always scope to feed more information in it. So with that in mind, I would bring you down to my concluding slides. And just a second. Is the slide visible?
The She Can tool slide is visible at the moment. Not the last one.
Is my presentation slide visible now?
Yeah, we can see the slide 9, number 9.
Okay, so I'll just make it full screen. Yeah.
Tanu, is it me? Oh, I think you're muted. and the slides are gone now.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just got disconnected. So let me just share the screen again. I hope it's visible now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the 9th slide, which should be on screen. Yeah, so in order to make this tool interactive, what we aim at is once, all of you and, the wider world at large has gone through this tool. If there are, for example, examples or case studies of interventions that you would like to be included in the tool, then just send information about it to us. And, we have, although the project has officially, the Empower project has officially been closed, the tool itself, we have that possibility to improve on it as we go along, at least for the next couple of years. So are there any more areas, perspectives, interventions you would like to suggest? Please go ahead and provide that information to us. And also, if you find some incorrect statements or facts that you would dispute, then please let us know. Also, when working on the topic of sexual harassment on public transport, you can use this tool and then discuss internally, in which work areas or fields do you envisage using this tool. And this kind of discussion you can undertake with your city authorities, transport authorities, internally in the research world, and also with international organizations. What would be useful if you want to work with this tool is also to have a sort of discussion internally on who can use the tool in your context, in what capacity, and are you yourself ready to use the tool? And rules and regulations around using such tool will invariably vary from context to context. And also, how do you see it affecting major policies? So this kind of feedback mechanism is important for us. To keep aware of us, like, what's the effectiveness of tool and how can we take it forward in the next phase of whenever that happens. But the aim is that instead of, just talking about certain elements of sexual harassment on public transport, how is it possible to give it a structure and talk about it in a structured manner, and also highlight which elements are you currently working with, which elements will you next work with, and make a plan of work on it. So the chapter which will be published in Edda and Karen's book will deal with this tool, will outline its structure, and will also open for possibilities on how to talk about sexual harassment in a structured manner. So that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tanu. I really appreciate this work, and I wish it was there when I was doing the Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan for Istanbul. So very, very useful, and quite interested to find out how it plays around with the stakeholders.
Thank you.
Thanks. So I will just go to the chat. There are a couple of questions now. Karen is not here at the moment, so I'll just leave her question to the end. But Lucy, you're here. So would you like to ask your question to Beatriz as well, like, or reading it so that I don't read your question?
Oh yeah, so I was just interested to know what kind of interventions were considered around personal security in the bus stops. I think you mentioned lighting, but I'm wondering if there are any others that kind of commonly get cited as recommendations.
Yeah, well, that's actually, when I saw your question in the chat, I was thinking like, yeah, she's totally right. I mean, this is one of the limitations of these, I would say, shared gender agenda between the different ministries, but actually it's very limited, the action that they have in a sectoral way. So, for example, we were working with the Ministry of Transport, and of course, they understand that there are a lot of issues in the surrounding areas of these bus stations or these bus stops. And the problem is that they're not allowed to participate in the regeneration process of the area. They can't really be part of the process of improving the mixed land use of the surrounding area. So it's like And also all of those issues of land mix use, or the facilities, or the activities in the area, and many of the things are actually related to security. They're framed in the things to do for the local government. So this is actually why I was referring to this gender agenda, considering all the different dimensions, but also the scales of acting over the territory. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's very unlikely that the Ministry of Transport is going to do anything about the surrounding areas. I mean, the only thing that they can do is the maintenance and the cleanliness of the area. And actually, they have a plan for having all of that very clean and okay.
Okay, thank you, Beatriz. And before you have another question, Lucy, but I see Kat has, yeah, it's to Tanu, I think. Tanu, have you read the question, or would you like to?
It's from Lucy, isn't it? The long question. Yeah.
No. Oh yeah,
Lucy
has got a question as well. Like, yeah,
there was one before as well about
no
the
problem.
universalizing or something. Let me ask my question, and then Edie, you can check out the other one. So yeah, the first one I had was kind of around like limitations with the evaluations that are available at the moment across the literature. Like there's quite a few, I think, that look at interventions and what their impacts are. So like, how did you overcome that limitation in terms of recommending interventions on the basis of their impact? And then the other thing that I was interested in know is how can you capture like intersecting marginalized identities within the tools features, specifically like around people's perspectives, and what the impacts are for different people, particularly marginalized people.
Yeah, so the last question first. Remember in the start of the presentation, I said that this tool was being made for transport professionals, and to give you a systematic structure around the interventions. So then the question about this intersecting marginalized identities, it's the tool, it never aimed to do that. However, in the second phase of the tool development, there could be a additional function where people can also put in feedbacks, and that could be and that has to be a local thing. So let's say the city of Cape Town adopts this tool, and then it opens for feedbacks from people living in Cape Town or visiting Cape Town. So that is the natural progression of the tool. The first question you have is like, how did we score interventions? So as you saw, it was a big consortium, first of all, where all of us have been working on this topic for some time. So it was an internal discussion about the scoring, plus we had several rounds of focus groups. Both with transport professionals, researchers, to give a sort of initial scoring, and then there were 3 focus groups which were organized, which was just to discuss the scoring of interventions. So if the research professionals, transport professionals, they agreed with the scoring at large. So yes, I cannot give you a sort of more conclusive answer than that, but this was our approach to give the initial scores. But then again, remember, this is a first draft of the tool. When a city or any area adopts it, they can change the scores depending on their context, right? So yeah.
Yeah, thanks. I like the idea of kind of localizing it, and it'd be interesting then in the local context to see, users' perspectives. Yeah, do they match with what's generated within the tool? That would be quite useful, I think.
So one of the most fascinating comments I remember from these focus groups is like one of the participants said, okay, you're saying lighting on street, but what kind of bulbs to be used, which provides enough lighting on the street? What should be the height of the lighting pole? And these kind of details cannot be provided at a global level. it has to be, tailor-made for the local context. What kind of bulbs, which company provides that bulb, and the wattage, etc. Secondly, this tool was developed initially for the African context, so that has to be also kept in mind. Yes.
Also, the bulbs should be protected or not, right? Like, so
yes,
that...
exactly. So really fine detailing, fine polishing of the tool needs to be done at the local level. There are also 2 questions from Kat.
Yeah, if you could answer those as well.
Yes. What are the limitations of the SheCan tool with respect to different countries and cultures? Can it be applied in different countries and cultures? Yes, to the last question, it can definitely be applied in different countries and cultures. But as I said, it needs to be discussed in the local setting and the local context. It gives you the broad framework of how to approach the topic in a structured manner, but that fine detailing needs to be done. The limitations of the SheCan tool. Well, I think this again needs to be discussed, like, what already exists on ground in the different contexts, and what, for example, we did a very detailed literature review on the topic, and what we saw was that certain countries, even in the developing part of the world, like in Latin America, there were extensive campaigns taken on the topic of sexual harassment on public transport, and that had a very visible effect on the incidence of sexual harassment on public transport. But that can't be said to be true for the other context, so you have to discuss it in the local context. There is another question from Kat. What interventions target men? Well, I think all interventions target men as well, because we did a study in Sierra Leone, Freetown, a couple of years back. And what we saw was that not sexual harassment, but crime was the biggest problem. And crime was affecting both men and women. So the moment you start designing interventions to reduce incidence of crime, it affects both men and women. And directly intervening, directly targeting men, I would say that, for example, advertisement campaigns, legal interventions, they target perpetrators, not men, but I mean, so to say, but perpetrators of crime. There's a question from,
to you.
Yes.
Tanu,
Yeah.
one last question, and then.
Were there significant differences, if any, in how interventions were rated by women and men? Well, this rating of intervention we have done internally at the level of professionals who are working in the transport field and researchers. So we didn't see much difference, but yes, certain differences led to a lot of heated discussion. For example, can staring, be qualified as an act of sexual harassment? And I remember this really heated discussion in a workshop conducted in Africa. And that's it's difficult to give you an answer. Like some kind of staring, which women recognize is an act of sexual harassment. But for a man, I mean, they would say that they were just looking. So it's, yeah. But this again needs to be discussed at a local level.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you, Tanu. Beatriz, you had your hand up. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that it was interesting when you were referring to the user-defined filters, and there's these most resource-efficient interventions and then the most effective interventions perceived by women. And I was wondering if you found differences between them, if there were the same responses or the same sort of interventions, or were actually different, these efficient, resource efficient or effective interventions for women?
Beatriz, can you please just quickly repeat the question?
Yeah, I was wondering if there are 2 sort of categories for the user-defined filters.
Yeah.
The resource-efficient interventions and then the effective intervention perceived by women. And I was wondering if they were the same in the final results, or you had differences, and actually there are some actions more
they're different.
effective.
There are 2 different topics. Resource in the sense, how much resource does the transport sector needs to put, for example, I gave you the example of lighting inside the bus. it's not a very resource intensive intervention. It's relatively less. You have a bus running, you make sure that lighting inside the bus functions, right? But if I say, for example, lightening all the walkable corridors which women are using throughout the city, that's a resource intensive intervention, because you have to make sure that all the corridors which are, being used are lit up properly in the evening and night. So then that's how the resource.
I understand that. Yeah, I understand the difference. I was wondering if there was a match between them, like having all the lightning repaired were as efficient in terms of costs, but also was very efficient in the like effective for the perception of women. If there was a match between them.
I'm sure there is match among a lot of interventions, but then you have to just pick it and see, how it's marked. But we haven't created these clusters, ready-made clusters, that there's a match between this, and so you take this package. That packaging has to be done at a local level. Yeah.
Thank you. I just intervened, but I had a very quick question to Sharmin, whether you have already communicated your research, or, what are the next steps in that sort of communication?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
I was just wondering whether you are communicating this research that you've done with policymakers and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Not yet, but after the publication, maybe I will. But of course that I have contacted some of the employer, because I had to get the consent. So they are very interested to see the result. So maybe after I get the final result, after the publication, I will reach to them. And definitely this will be a good report for a policymaker as well, because as it will be correlate the transport mobility issue and the productivity, and definitely will help them in future policymaking.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Tanu, did you want to say something?
Yes, I have a comment for Sharmin. I can't recall the author, but there is some sort of benchmarking in terms of the loss in economic output when the female productivity in garment sector goes down. And if you can actually show what kind of, how many billions of dollar loss we are talking about here, it's certainly the best way to capture the imagination of policymakers and politicians, because the loss is humongous. And as you said yourself, that the uptake of female labor in the garment sector is going down, and that has serious repercussions for the economy of Bangladesh.
Yes, yeah, that's true. So maybe this will be difficult means economy, how the economic contribution economy is downgraded. Maybe it can be indirectly it can be related, because of the transport efficiency, the women labor is going down, and eventually they are losing the women. But women are very good and cheap labor for the garment sector, and they may be losing some buyers, and eventually they are getting some the dollar lose, economic downfall. So maybe indirectly it can be eventually it can be correlated. Yes.
Yeah, I think you don't need to really reflect on the numbers, but if you can include this in your discussion part of why it is so important to look at the aspect of gendered empowerment and also safety and security in the transport sector.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Comment. Thank you. I would really like to continue with these conversations, but we have to close now. And I would like to thank all the speakers and also the participants for their great questions and great presentations, and hope we keep in touch, and maybe we'll see each other in future conferences. And yes, Emma has just shared the next session. It's a sorry, not this one, Emma, the last one. Yeah, Bicycles for Growth. So Gail Jennings, Winnie Sambu, and Alicia Myers will be in this session presenting their work. So if you can join us again in 2 weeks, I think, yes, that'd be great. Thanks everyone, and thanks Emma for hosting this as well. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. See you.
Bye.
Cheers. See you.